and welcome to Amethyst Style Crafting. My name is Jane Ormark and I'm a UK independent demonstrator. And today we're looking at a Sale-A-Bration stamp set, Happy Birthday to You. It's a beautiful birthday cake with flowers on it. Happy birthday to you, celebrate, and some little splats. We're going to do something a little different with it because I like to be able to use, as most of you know, the stamps more than in one way or more than in the way that it's actually intended for. So we're just going to take a piece of Whisper White cardstock. I'm using heavy. You can use watercolour paper, you can use, as long as it's something that will stand up to a little bit of colouring. And depending on what colouring you're going to do, it will depend what sort of paper you want to use. So we are going to ink this up, but we're not going to ink up the whole thing. So we're not going to ink up the cake part, and I'm doing it in a good black ink. And we are then going to take it from the corner and we're just going to stamp it out. We're then going to ink it up again. And we're going to take it to the next corner. And again, just put it in at a bit of an angle and stamp it out. We're going to take it to the next corner. Ink it up. And again, take it at a bit of an angle. We're going to take it again. So we're basically doing all four corners first. And again, taking it at a bit of an angle in on there. Doesn't matter if it comes out straighter than angled, really doesn't matter. And then these two pieces at the top and the bottom, we're going to do exactly the same thing and just fill in those pieces. But you want to make sure that you're not covering the image, because we're not going to mask it. We're just doing a very simple colouring to this. So we just want to stamp this in on this little piece like that, and then we've got the pieces that we want. Now I'm just going to give this a clean with my Simply Chamois. And then we can put it back in its case. Okay, so now we need to do some colouring, and it is entirely down to you. I would use blends, watercolour pencils, whatever you want. Now I'm going to do this because I want to do this fairly quickly, and I am going to do it with some watercolouring, I think. So let me just get my watercolour pencil, sorry, my aqua painter, which is just right at the back of my little shelf. Excuse my hands coming through. So aqua painter, and then we need to take some colours. Now this one I'm going to do in blues. I'm going to have it a blue card. So we've got Mossy Meadow, we've got Night of Navy, and we've got Pacific Point. So I'm going to start with Pacific Point, and I'm just going to put a little bit on a block. Easiest way, I use a small block because, to be quite honest, that will colour the whole lot. So it's a very economical way of colouring, and we need this fairly wet. Oh, that's my thicker one. I want my thinner one actually. The nice thing about the aqua painter is that you have a thick brush and a thin brush, and I tend to use the thin brush more than the thick, particularly for small things like this. So we want quite a bit of water in on here. So just literally squeeze a few drops in on here so we can have it quite nice and wet. And then we are literally just going to very quickly colour in the flowers all the way through. Now I'm doing this fast. You can do it as neatly as you want, but I'm literally just wanting to show you that you can actually do this fairly quickly. We're not doing the centre, And again, it's quite nice to not re-ink to get different coloured flowers. And it's literally a very simple just wash. So we'll take a little bit more up. We'll do this one in on here. And again, don't worry too much about the edges and things. Just make sure that you're just giving a nice sort of colour tone through on this. So you can see I'm quite quickly just going over. I'm taking each one through on the flowers. And this is quite the nice thing. When you stamp it into the corners, different parts are going to show on different ones. So it's not an exact science. You can have it a little bit more over, you can have a little bit less, but it's quite nice having the different coloured tones to the flowers. So using a bright colour like Pacific Point, it means that you can have it coming through quite bright and dark, or you can have it quite pale, but you get the different tones as well. So let's just put this one through and then say colour it through. It's quite nice, as I say, to have different coloured tones coming through. We've just got a couple more in here to do. So just take this down in here. And the aqua painter is really nice because it does blend it through. I must admit, if I'm trying to do something where I'm doing it quite quickly, then I will. I'm just adding a little bit more water to this because I don't want it too intense, because particularly when you're just doing it on cardstock instead of watercolour paper, it's quite easy to go through. I think that's about right. I might add just a little bit more on this one because it's it'll then balance it with the one on the other side. So as I say, you've got some pale, you've got some dark, but you can see just how much I've used, very little at all. And then just take a piece of kitchen roll and clean your brush through, and then just wipe through the top of your block. So it's a very sort of quick and easy thing to do. And then we are going to take the Night of Navy. Now, if you've done, I'll show you one that I did in sort of pinks, but if you add a yellow to the centre, yellow and blue makes green, so you'll end up with a green centre. So I wanted this to be not as contrasting that it would make it look a bit odd. So this is the Night of Navy. And we're just going to take this up through, and I am going to take it through on the little, so the centre part and where the little lines are, just down on here. So just up on those bits just a little bit, because when it starts to dry it'll just give that little bit of definition. Oh, I didn't do this one. Never mind, there's one I've got to do in blue. I shall do that in a second. Comes from chatting and talking. You'll have to excuse me if you can hear my washing machine in the background. I'm doing this on, I always do my videos about a week or so ahead. And today is Monday, and Monday's wash day. Always had Mondays as wash day. And I've just realised it's now just on the spin cycle, so it's probably making a dickens of a noise, but I know you'll hear me behind it. But if you're wondering what the noise is, it's the washing machine just on its spin bit. But like everything, it stops after a little while. Okay, right, so that's got the colours in on there. And then while we're at it, I'm going to do am I going to do the buds in the dark or the light? No, I'm going to do the buds in the light. So I'm just going to clean my brush off and clean this up as well. And we need a little bit of the Pacific Point because we missed one little flower down at the bottom. So let me just add just a little bit. I don't need much, so I'm just doing a little corner piece, which again is probably way too much, but that should be all right. So let's take this one, and where was that little flower I missed? It was, here it is, it's down in this corner. It's quite funny, isn't it? As you're going round, you look at things and you go like, oh, was that right or was that not right? Okay, now if you want to just tone down the centre just a little bit, what you can do is you can just take some of the blue through and just bring it in a little bit in on that centre. So I want it quite pale, so I'm just doing that through. Okay, that'll do, that'll do. It's one of those things, once you start watercolouring, you can change your mind and do things quite often. Right, so let's put that one out of the way now. Now we want to do the little, oh, actually the little buds. I'm going to use this little bit in here just to do these buds, because I want these buds to be quite bright. So just a little bit on the inside of each one of these little tiny buds. I must admit I do like watercolouring, because it does, when you're using the blends, something like this would probably take me about an hour to colour it with all the lights and the darks and the shadings and things, whereas this is going to take me probably about 10 minutes, so I don't think that that's too bad. And it's something, as I say, if you're not haven't got a huge amount of time, then it's a good way to just do a quick bit of colouring and for it to look quite pretty as well. So I'm just taking the insides of these buds, and I think that's it. I think that's it. I should probably find one that's not done, and you'll probably, if you've seen it, you'll be going like, oh, there's one not done just there. Okay, right, so now we're going to do our greens, and this is going to be for the leaves, and I'm using Mossy Meadow because Mossy Meadow is an absolutely lovely colour, but like everything, when you're using the aqua painter, the colour will become a little less intense. So a little bit of water on here, give it a little squeeze, so I've just got a little pool in the centre, and then literally we're just going to work our way round with these. It's probably a little bit wet. If it's a bit wet, then just dry it off, because then you don't need it to be quite so wet. And then just go round doing the leaves as you go. So there's quite a nice sort of variation of little leaves on here, so it looks quite pretty. So you've got this bit on here, and again, you don't have to be overly precise with it. It is supposed to be like a little watercoloured wash, so if you go out a little bit, don't panic too much. But the colours, I think, look pretty good together, and again, it's quite nice to do one in not the colours that you would automatically think of doing them. So, you know, we don't often have too many blue, I mean, forget-me-nots and things like that, but it does make quite a pretty card in a different colour hue. So we're just literally working our way through round on here. I always turn my paper because then I'm not putting my hand over my work, and it makes it just a little bit easier to work with. And it's something that, as I say, you can do with the blends. Will look absolutely beautiful with this, but doing something like this, as I said, it does take a little while. Now I've got some sort of flowery bits on here. I'm just going to make these leaves actually just in this little bit at the bottom, and take that bit up on there. Okay, so now we've sort of gone round on all of those. Let me clean this bit off, because what we're going to do now is we are going to take clean the brush off again. Just wipe it backwards and forwards until it runs clean. We're going to take some crumb cake now. So again, just doing the pad so you've got a nice little palette. And we will probably use most of this because what we're going to do is, and again, I want this with some water in so it's fairly loose. Because this is where we are going to. So we're going to go through on what is the cake part, but it's actually not going to be the cake part. By the time we've finished this, it won't be. It'll be more like a brick wall. So we're just going round, and again quite loosely. So turn it round on here, and I quite like the colour of crumb cake with the blue flowers. It looks quite pretty. Haven't quite done that bottom of that petal. So we're, as I say, quite quickly just literally washing it through, which gives the background part like that. Okay, now what we're going to do is, and I might need just a little bit more, we'll have to see, I might just about get away with it, if not I'll do some more. So where you see that there is a space between these, we are going to fill that in just up to where the flower is, so the start of the flower. So this one will come up to, I think, probably just that edge there. Then we'll take the next one, and this one can come in round on here just to the bottom of the flower. So I am going to take this one up just to the bottom of that leaf in there. I will need just a little bit more. So just, that'll do. Some more water on here. Because as I say, you want it quite nice and wet. So where had we got to? Okay, so this one you can see is a blank piece, so we're just filling this in, and we'll take it up to that bottom flower, and then we'll take this one up to this sort of flower here, and then this one can go in up on here, and I'll probably take it up to the bottom of that leaf. Okay, now as it's sort of drying through, you can just add a little bit more in if you want to, so where you've stamped that, what would have been the cake part, it's sort of running through together and making almost like a, as I say, it could be a garden wall or something like that. So just take it through. Okay, so now we've got that bit done. Now the next bit we need to do, because we need to tie this all in together, is to take the stamp set again, and I said that little tiny splatter on here. I love little splatters because what they do is they tie everything together beautifully. So we're going to take the crumb cake, and we are going to, just in between these little spaces between the flowers, we're just going to put one little piece of this splatter like that, and then we are going to take the rest of it, and literally just where this bottom piece is, we're just going to dot it about so you can see where it comes, and it breaks down the fact that there is the bottom of the cake just sort of disappears a bit in there. It isn't quite as pronounced because we're blending it through with the other things. Okay, so that then takes that to there. Then all we need to do is to add a sentiment into the centre. And I think I'm going to do that in the crumb cake because I want it to be fairly fairly muted, I think. So let me just get my we'll put this to one side because I need to have a longer one for this. So Happy Birthday's not going to fit on this, but Celebrate will. And I quite like Celebrate because Celebrate really is for any occasion you want. Now I'm using this great big huge block because I've been showing recently how yes, I have all of the blocks, but if you're starting out and this sort of thing, you've just used the one stamp set, so you don't need lots of blocks. So I just need to make sure that it's leveled up. I'm going to take the crushed curry and then I'm just going to put this in on the center here because I think it will fit perfectly like that without it sort of going over everything. And then all we have to do is to put it onto a base. So we can take, let me have a look and see what bases I've got together. This is the one that I did earlier and I put it on a crumb cake. So this was done in some pinks. I can't in fact remember what colour I used. I used the crushed curry for the centre, but that's in that one. And then this one, have I got a blue? Don't know whether I've got a blue actually. I've got a blue but the wrong colour, but I'm just going to tuck it behind just to sort of see how if you put a Pacific Point base on it, oh yes, how it would really sort of pop. So you've got two very different looks, one done in the blues, which is very sort of bright and vibrant, and one done more subtly in pinks and yellows. But it makes a lovely card where you're just using the one stamp set, you're just using a couple of ink pads and an aqua painter, but any colouring medium would work. So thank you so much for watching me. Do look forward to seeing you again. Bye bye.